Okay, let's dive into this. We usually think of the law as this single official rule book, right? But what if it's actually more like a choir, with a bunch of different voices all singing at the same time? And get this, they're not always singing in harmony. That's the messy, fascinating world we're about to explore.
To really get our heads around this, we're going to start with a puzzle. A real-world legal contradiction that, at first glance, just seems totally impossible. It's a case where the law seems to be saying three completely different things all at once.
And that entire puzzle comes down to this one very specific question. In Italy, can trade unions make labor agreements that are legally binding for everybody? Now that sounds like a simple yes or no question, doesn't it? Well, you're about to see it's anything but. And this is where it gets really weird. First, you look at the Italian Constitution. It says, sure, registered unions can make binding agreements. Okay, great. But then you look at the legislation, and you find out that the lawmakers, they never actually created a way for unions to register. So logically, that means no agreements can be binding, right? And yet, the courts just go ahead and enforce them anyway. So what is the law here? Which one is it? To solve this mystery, we have to look way beyond just the written rules. Because the problem isn't just about conflicting laws. It actually goes much deeper, all the way down to the meaning of the words themselves. You know, this gets especially tricky when we try to compare laws across different countries. You might think a basic word like ownership or contract means the same thing everywhere, but so often it just doesn't. Some legal ideas are so tied to their home country that they're basically untranslatable. I mean, just look at this question from Professor Carol Fee. He was trying to understand a financial thing called a revolving fund in different legal systems. But check out the words he has to use. Legal estate, equitable estate. To a lawyer from, say, France or Germany, those terms are completely alien. Their systems don't have those concepts. It's like trying to describe the color blue to someone who's only ever seen in black and white. And this really nails the problem, doesn't it? If we can't even agree on what the basic building blocks, the words, mean, then just reading and comparing legal texts is never going to give us the full picture. We need a totally different kind of tool. And that brings us to this brilliant idea from a legal scholar named Rodolfo Sacco. He gave us a completely new way of looking at things, a concept he called legal formants. And this, right here, is the key that's going to unlock our whole puzzle. So here's the core idea, and it's a game changer. Sacco said we should stop trying to find the one true law. Instead, we should see law as a collection of different forces, or formants, all pushing and pulling at the same time. These are all the different things that combine to shape what the law actually is in the real world. So, what counts as a formant? Well, pretty much everything. It can be the country's constitution. It's definitely the laws passed by politicians. But it's also what the courts actually decide to do in their day-to-day rulings. It can even be what famous law professors write in books, or the big, sweeping ideological statements a country makes about its values. Each one of these is a separate voice in that choir we talked about. All right, so now we've got this powerful new tool in our toolbox. Let's take it back to that crazy contradiction in Italy and see if this whole theory of legal formants can finally make it all make sense. This is the moment of truth. How can this idea of different layers, different voices, possibly explain a situation where the Constitution, the laws, and the courts are all pointing in completely different directions? Let's walk through it using our new lens. What we have here isn't one law that's broken. It's three distinct legal formants, all doing their own thing. First, you've got the constitutional formant, this big, high-level principle about registered unions. Second, you have the legislative formant, or actually a lack of one. The politician's inaction basically makes that constitutional rule useless. So third, in steps the judicial formant, the judges on the ground who are faced with a real problem, and they just create their own practical rule to make things work. And just like that, the puzzle is solved. See, it was never a mistake or a contradiction in the first place. It was simply different parts of the legal system, the different formants, being out of sync with each other. Each one was telling its own piece of the story, and those pieces just didn't line up perfectly. The law is what happens when they all interact. Now, this is way more than just a clever trick for solving Italian labor law puzzles. The idea of legal formants gives us a totally new and honestly a much more realistic way of understanding how law actually works, everywhere, in any country. So, why does this matter to you? Well, first off, it explains why a government can pass a big, flashy new law, but nothing actually changes in the real world. The other formants, like what judges do or what people believe, might just carry on as before. It also shows why two countries can copy the exact same laws but have totally different societies. And maybe most important, it reveals that law isn't some dusty, static rulebook. It's a living, breathing, dynamic system that's full of tension and, yes, even contradiction. This quote from Sacco himself just nails it. He's basically saying that lawyers who only study their own country's laws are obsessed with making everything neat and consistent. But as soon as you start comparing laws across countries and across time, you realize that contradiction isn't a flaw in the system. It is the system. And that leaves us with one final big thought to chew on. If the official written law is just one voice in the choir, it really makes you wonder, what are the other rules? The unwritten judicial habits, the academic theories, the deep-seated cultural norms. What are the hidden formants that are shaping the laws in the society that you live in every single day?